What's going to be with Gaza now that the United States has said that we are going to take over Gaza following the war in Israel? Check out this clip from Douglas Murray to see his reaction to the situation, using his expertise of many years at this point in the Middle East, his projection for the future. You're not going to want to miss. But before you do, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. It really helps us. Thanks so much.
So much has happened this week with President Donald Trump's executive orders, including pulling the US out of the UN Human Rights Council, cutting funding for UNRWA, and now this groundbreaking plan to rebuild Gaza. What do you make of it all? And is he serious about the US taking over Gaza, or is it a negotiation strategy?
Well, first of all, I mean, all of these presidential orders and directives are, I think, fantastic. The pulling the US out of the so-called UN Human Rights Council is a bare minimum thing. Anyone who's spent any time looking at or sitting through the Alice in Wonderland procedures at the UN Human Rights Council will realize that no self-respecting liberal democracy should have anything to do with it. Sort of place where North Korea denounces Australia for its treatment of women, and the Iranian regime talks about the importance of nuclear non-proliferation and all that sort of thing. It's an absolute fantasy land, and it's always been a farce, and I don't really see why America or any other self-respecting democracy should have anything much to do with it. As for the Gaza announcements this week, they certainly break the paradigm, don't they, Rita? The current thinking on Gaza, as far as there was any, was that having started another war against Israel in October 2023, just the latest of many wars that Hamas-run Gaza started against Israel since Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, that the main thinking was, well, after they've lost again, everyone should just pay more billions to rebuild Gaza and hand it back to the Palestinians of Gaza so that they can start another war in a few years' time when they've rearmed and made their leadership a bit much richer. And I didn't think that was a viable idea. I don't actually think very many international players thought it was a very viable idea, but it was sort of the only idea that anyone had on the table. Trump has said what is completely true, which is Gaza isn't especially livable these days. You'll remember, viewers will remember that all of our taxpayer dollars and pounds and euros that were sent to Hamas-run Gaza were mainly used to buy luxury apartments for the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And also, of course, very importantly, to build the huge underground tunnel network in which the Hamas authorities could protect their rockets and make sure that they were as safe as possible. And of course, also then hold young Jewish babies and others captive. All of this they ruined the Gaza. And, in my view, Rita, there is a price to be paid. There always has been historically for starting wars again and again against your neighbors and then losing them. Hamas lost this war. It's in the final processes of losing it. And I think it's perfectly appropriate they should lose land. That's what always happens in war. And that's why you shouldn't start a war. And it's almost as if there's a lesson there, isn't there?
Indeed. It's also becoming increasingly clear that the Saudi-Israel peace deal is going to move ahead, and it's not going to be conditional on Palestinian statehood. That was the conventional wisdom for many years, that any Arab-Israeli normalization was conditional on Palestinian statehood. Trump turned that on its head during his first term. There seems to be continuing with that. And as for the plans to relocate the Gazans, Donald Trump has floated the idea of Egypt or Jordan taking in people from Gaza. But you have another idea, Douglas. You wrote in the New York Post that perhaps countries like Ireland and Canada and Pakistan and those who seem to say they care so much about the Palestinians, maybe they should step forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly obvious that Jordan and Egypt should take in large numbers of the population from Gaza. partly because, I mean, in Egypt's case, it has a historic responsibility over Gaza, a historic responsibility that it has ignored in recent decades. But they used to own and run the Gaza, and they should be really good at looking after much of the population of the benighted Strip. As for Jordan, it's pretty much a Palestinian state anyway. And Queen Rania has been very vocal about how much she cares about the Palestinians in the last 15 months. Didn't seem to care so much about the war that they started against Israel. But I think Queen Rania now has a fantastic opportunity. She has many, many palaces, Queen Rania of Jordan, and this is a great opportunity to relocate those benighted Gazans to some of her palaces. As for Ireland, Pakistan, Canada, and other countries, yes, if they care so much about the Palestinian people who keep on starting wars that they lose, then I think it's a great opportunity to take some of these people in very large numbers. And I'm sure that as I said in the New York Post, I'm sure that the Palestinians from Gaza will help their countries that receive them to boom in their own special and indeed traditional way.
I just wish you wouldn't give this sort of advice, because our government here in Australia is silly enough to actually take it. We are one of the very few places, perhaps the only place in the world, that's taken thousands in from an area where you would have to suggest they cannot be vetted properly. You don't know if these people are sympathetic to Hamas or not.
Whatever you think of the guy, he thinks outside the box, that's for sure. Love to hear your comments below, and if you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. Love to stay in touch. Take care.